You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the second part of What If Deku Enters Huntik, Secrets and Seekers. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of HanBaron on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. It was about a week after the UA entrance exam when I got my letter. I took it to my room and was surprised by the projection. I am here. As a projection. You did very well, young Midoriya. You scored very well on your written exam. However, what you want to know about is your practical, right? All Might announced and started in on the holographic projector. Gotta wonder if the folks who made holotomes may have leaked or sourced some of the basics of the tech out. While All Might was up, someone told him he had more to do, so he carried on. He went on to say that while the judges didn't know exactly how I and another student did what we did, they were impressed by it. And that I had racked up a total of 60 villain points during the battle. But that is not all we look for in an applicant. Your actions inspired others. Your willingness to go into the fray against an enemy that terrified other. And even use a power you may not even know you could handle. Just to save someone else. How could we reject someone like that? So that is where the other side of the exam comes in, with rescue points. He went on to tell me that I had earned another 60 points on top of that. Taking the top spot in the exam. Before I learned about Seekers and what I could do, I may have felt the urge or need to cry after hearing the start to my dream being realized. But now, I'm just glad that I proved what I could do, and the training and time others were willing to help me with was worth it. Welcome to your hero academia, All Might said. With that done, I messaged both Melissa and Asahi. Melissa will actually be attending UA in a sense as well. Thanks to her qualifications and research from I-Island, the principal asked her to come on as an advisor to the support course student. And Asahi, he just says it was a no-brainer that I would end up in the hero course. And he'll see me there. Asahi POV. After going over some old tomes from South America, I checked the mail and found my letter from UA came in. Or rather the holoprojector, with someone telling me my results. Hello there, young man. I am the principal of UA Academy. My name is Nizu. A strange mouse-like creature says when I activate the projector. Not what I expected in more than one way. But I guess quirks have caused a lot of weird SHT over the last 3 centuries. Now for your results. Of course, you passed the written half of the exam, but the practical is where most are more concerned. You earned the top in villain points at 65 total. Izuku must have gotten the same amount. Well, it will be fun to compete with him in a friendly way outside of missions. But that is not all we judge here at UA. For there is another element that is more important than defeating villains. And that is to rescue a life. Of which you did. 4 of them in fact. Not only that, but you defeated the villain with quite an impressive display. And I know there's gonna be a but in this. Because I know about where and how I screwed up. To which the Nizu projection continues on with, however, while you saved and protected the other applicants, you also put them in danger. Stopping the 0-point robot would have been enough. But the fact that you both stopped it and protected others from your own faulty attack proved enough to impress quite a few of us here. He seems to be about to start a whole lecture, but luckily for me someone off-screen tells him to wrap it up. With that he told me I earned 50 rescue points, bringing my total up to 110 points. I get a text from Izuku not long after mine finishes up. He did take the top spot like I thought. I'm glad I decided to walk in town that day. I met a good friend and brought him into something greater than he had believed. And in turn he helped me believe a bit in the heroes I often would scoff or turn my nose up at. And now we will both be aiming to be heroes. Bakugou POV. I'm glad I won't have to deal with these extras much longer. Soon enough I'll be at UA. And be the only one from this crappy school. No way that DMN Deku made it in. No matter how good at martial arts or whatever it is he does, he can't compete with the apex that is me. Or really anyone with a quirk. But now I've got my acceptance letter from UA here. Can't wait for them to tell me that I was the number one. Hey there listener. Present Mike here with your stats and records for the entrance exam. Well, it makes sense that he might be the one to give these. He's at least got the personality for it. He of course tells me I scored well on the written exam. No duh. But now he's getting to the good part, my practical results. Where I left all those extras in the dust. You scored 17 villain points in total. If you are wondering why, it is because a fair number of the ones you attacked were in fact already shut down or defeated. There's no freaking way that's possible. I know I blasted a huge number of robots. It's then when he shows me that over half of the ones I had attacked were shut down in small ways by some DMN rat. This weird-looking bird would carry it to a robot, then he would jump down and either hit a button to shut it off or screw with the wires. That was one of those things that JRK made appear. So, he got my points. Then you also had the problem with others getting broken a bit before you could hit them. Sorry kid. Bad luck comes in with some of these. At that the image shifts to showing that at least 2 other monsters that kid had summoned were breaking my kills before I could. So he took most of my kills alone. No, not alone, he had those DMN creatures. But they'll still take me in the hero course, right? While you don't qualify for the hero course, you can still attend UA in the general ed department. Who knows, maybe you'll get lucky and get a different chance here. Well, see ya. And with that he just blinks out. There's no way this can be happening. Next day, same POV. It just got F worse. Turns out that DMN Deku did get accepted into UA. And not just the general ed course. I figured if he could even get the chance. No. He's in the F hero course. How? How could they accept that worthless quirkless piece of trash and not someone as great as I am? Well, screw UA. If they can't see greatness, then they don't get to have me. Shiketsu is on par with UA for heroes. I'll show that I'm even better and I don't need UA. It's only more annoying when the teacher tells everyone that Deku got the highest score on the entire exam. Triple F digits. And I didn't even get to 20 total. Screw them all. I'll show them I'm the greatest from a different school. It had been a quiet couple of weeks before my first day at UA. Katsuki hadn't tried to make a scene after it was revealed that only I got into UA. Apparently, he had applied to Shiketsu and made it into their heroics program. But I can tell he's still mad about what happened during the practical for UA. Asahi may not have directly sabotaged him, but he still took most of the points that Katsuki had gone for. And I'm guessing he doesn't want to be around me anymore. Even in the UA general course, because it'll keep reminding him of how he failed. Though given his personality and the way he views himself, he'll probably have more than a few rude awakenings at Shiketsu. But I can't worry about that. Today I start my high school life at UA. I made sure to grab a few amulets, mostly just out of habit, but who knows how things may turn out during classes today. Yo Izuku. Wait up, man. I hear Asahi call out to me as I'm entering the gates to UA. I smile and say, hey Asahi. Funny to think we'll be working together more than just in missions or the dojo, huh? Yeah. Oh, speaking of, I think we may be getting a mission later today. Some rumblings about Fuji. Asahi informs me with a serious face. My smile drops a bit at that, but I see it as another way to improve what I know and can do. With that we head off to our class and are surprised by the height of the door. But I realize that it is for people with quirks that may make them taller than most. I open the door and see my classmates for the next 3 years. They all turn to look at the two of us, but it is the stiff boy from my part of the entrance exam who come up to speak to us. Hello there. My name is Ida Tenya. I have to congratulate you on seeing through to the true hidden part of the exam. Oh, and what is your name? Well, he's a bit abrupt. But I'm quick to recover and say, I didn't actually know about a hidden part to the exam. But I'm pretty sure Asahi here did. Oh, and my name is Midoriya Izuku, I say pointing to him. Ida seems a bit surprised that the one who called him out at the overview session knew what would happen, but some others decide to speak up. Hey, you both have those weird necklaces. Do you two have similar quirks? Wait, does that mean he can summon a bronze giant too? It wasn't bronze, but I did see a giant of some kind. Bon. I'm guessing that last one was from the kid with the laser from his stomach. As I'm about to say something to answer some questions, I hear a voice behind me say, hey, you're that plain-looking guy who saved me. It's great that we're in the same class. Said person is the girl I saved from the 0-pointer, who has a bright beaming smile on her face as she talks. I'm not sure what to say next as I'm still getting used to girls talking to me in a positive way. I'm more comfortable with Melissa, but most that is due to training together. If you're here to make friends, I suggest you go elsewhere. At that, the four of us at the door look around and see a giant yellow caterpillar with a human face and eating on a yogurt pouch. Okay, this is weird. And I've gone into tombs before and seen all kinds of otherworldly monsters. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down. None of you are rational enough. Okay, is this guy in any place to say that? But it is enough for all of us in the class to go and sit at our desks. Alright then. I'm your homeroom teacher Aizawa Shoyuta. And I think it's time we have a little exam before we get started. Put your PE clothes on and meet me at the phys ed grounds. At that he presses a button that reveals our gym uniforms and walks out. This is all confusing, but Asahi seems to be putting the pieces together of what he said. I start doing the same and realize some of what is going on. This is about whether or not we can hack it as heroes, isn't it? I ask Asahi privately after we've all changed and are heading to the grounds. He nods a bit and says, most likely. He seems the type that is more about the realistic side of heroism. You and I both know that All Might, and the media have given people a somewhat idealized and unreasonable idea of what heroes are. Aizawa is doing this to make sure we know that. I nod because I had thought some of that too. The two of us won't have a problem, but some of the others may have issues given that they haven't gone through the same trials we have. But for now, we have to give this our all. With everyone gathered outside, Aizawa decided to explain what he had in mind. Today all of you are going to take the usual physical tests you taken all through school. However, you all will be using your quirks to show your performance. Midoriya. You had the highest score on the practical. What was your furthest softball throw in middle school? 46 meters or so. Aizawa nods and then says, well, now I want you to use your quirk in any way to throw it even farther. Izuku hums a bit before asking about some of the limits. Aizawa tells him that he can't leave the circle, and Izuku smiles before standing in the circle. He pulls out an amulet and calls out, fly Icarus. At that the winged titan appears next to him, and everyone except Asahi is surprised. Icarus, take this ball as far as you feel comfortable flying. Then toss it as hard as you can. The titan nods at the command and takes the ball before flying off. After a minute, the monitor in Aizawa's hand goes off, reading 2,587 meters. While confused at the whole matter, Aizawa nods and says, not exactly what I was expecting, but you had the right idea. Alright, who's next? When most of the other students were excited to get to use their quirks, however, they wanted, some commenting that it would be fun, Aizawa decided to drop another bomb on them. Fun, huh? In that case, whoever scores the lowest on the exam will be immediately expelled. This shocks everyone, with Uraraka saying that it wasn't fair. To which Aizawa responded that was the point. You aren't here to have a leisurely high school life. You are all here to train to be heroes. If you can't hack it, you don't belong here. While most are intimidated, Asahi and one other knows there is something else to what their teacher is saying. As the tests progressed, Asahi and Izuku kept surprising their classmates by demonstrating similar powers. Are you guys related or something? You have like the same quirk? A blonde-haired student asked. Asahi gave an angry grunt before saying, "We're not dumb animals like you guys. Our powers are more ancient than most. That and our titans date back over 11,000 years. At that most are more confused, until for an extension to the standing long jump test Izuku's summon Raijin. He uses hyperstride to increase his jump and then Raijin grabs his arm and tosses him further. He extends it even more by using bubble lift to float down slowly." Wait. Did you say Raijin? As in the Shinto god of lightning? How is this possible? The tallest girl in their class asked. Once Izuku was back he explained that most of what you think of as myth and legend, we know to be true in different ways. Heck, I've even seen the hammer Mjolnir. It takes two of us, but I've used it once too. At this more jaws are dropped. Aizawa on the other hand is thinking back to something the Hero Commission had put out about the true capability of most who are quirkless. That they had the potential to defeat or even take over most people with quirks. Hold on a second. I was wondering. Does the power you two wield extend to manipulating minds? At that question, a few others are nervous about the answer and Asahi replies, we can erase minds or manipulate people to a point. But it's not like we want to. At least the two of us anyway. Not our fault you're all weak-willed and weak-minded. At this a red-haired boy is about to confront Asahi about his statements, when said boy says, simple mind. At that the red-haired kid's eyes go slack, and he seems to not know where he is. And with a snap from Asahi's fingers, the boy hardens his head before smashing it into the ground. This terrifies most of the others around him, including Aizawa. The redhead snaps out of it after the impact and while he wants to confront Asahi about this, Aizawa steps in and says to the two, okay, that's enough. We have others who need to finish the tests. Lambert, Midoriya, can we talk after class? Once the rest had been dispersed and the tests continued. At the end Izuku and Asahi had tied for the top with the tall girl named Yaoyorozu Momo coming in close second. At the bottom was Mineta Minoru, who looked about ready to break down in tears. He had tried so hard with what limits he had due to his quirk, but it wasn't enough. Aizawa then said, the part about expulsion. It was a lie. While most are face-faulting at that statement, Momo just says, of course it was a lie. I thought it was obvious. Wait. Should I have said something? While most were shouting in their minds that she should have, Asahi has a different point. He would have expelled us though. If we didn't put out enough or weren't creative, enough to get the job done. Shorty, or I guess it's Mineta, did the best he could with his lacking physique and power potential in his quirk. Even though he's at the bottom he still tried to be as creative as he could with what limits he had. Most are surprised and think that Asahi is messing with them all until Aizawa says, you seem to have a lot more to you than those strange powers. You're right. I would have if he had just put the bare minimum out. But he was creative and worked the best he could with what he had. At that the class ends and Aizawa asks that Izuku and Asahi meet him in the teacher's lounge. Once they had changed, they went up to talk with Aizawa. So, what did you need to know, teach? Asahi asks casually. Izuku is freaking out a bit at Asahi speaking so casually to their teacher. Aizawa on the other hand is a bit annoyed but moves past it. Okay, I got a little bit of information from the commission about you two's powers. But I'd like to know a bit more. And I'm guessing a few of my fellow teachers here would like to know the same. A few of said teachers stand up and look their way. Izuku is a bit nervous being put on the spot, and Asahi looks ready for a fight. But then All Might comes in and breaks up the tension. Now all of you. Don't intimidate them. I know a bit as well. After all, the group they work with has been protecting the world long before we even were alive. Besides, I owe one of their best my life. I got mixed up in a fight that would have left me severely injured, and that person saved my life. At that statement, all of teachers are more interested. And with Asahi starts explaining the true hidden history of the world and what has existed for millennia. Izuku comes in with a few points when it gets to the awakening or warping of people due to quirks. Including the fact that now there may be hundreds of powerfully dangerous evil seekers with a major axe to grind against anyone with a quirk. But surely they'd be ancient by now. Right? A teacher with a gas mask asks. Asahi shakes his head saying, "Our powers give us a fairly long life as is. Some others could have been frozen. Besides, most of the totals of quirkless are probably off by quite a bit. There could be more in the rural areas, but no one checks because they only will focus on cities. Or there are those who are homeless forced out because of the egotism attached to quirks." The teachers all look down and realize he makes an exceptionally good point. And with Asahi's next point about the fact that most heroes and the twisted version of humans that now existed, more people with anger at those with quirks were being recruited by an enemy they were all helpless against. Maybe we need to make sure about a few other matters both in country and worldwide. If what he's saying is true, then we may have bigger problems than we want to admit. A large teacher with prominent lower fangs and a BLD red suit said, and a few other teachers nodded along with him. At that they agreed to take this to Nizu as a way to combat a possible growing threat. Midoriya, Lambert. Thank you for telling us about this. You can go now. And All Might, you may want to get in touch with those friends. Even if we are weak against them, we should have our students know more about what they may deal with. After a nod from the boys before they left and All Might getting together his paperwork, the teachers began discussing what may happen. All Might, you're doing their first hero lesson in 2 days, right? The red-suited man asked. Indeed, Vlad King. Figured I'd let them get used to some more of the school before tossing them headfirst into the lessons. Well, do you mind if my class is a part of that as well? Vlad King asks with a serious look on his face. All Might is a bit surprised, but he nods realizing Vlad's intent. You want your students to see what seekers are capable of, don't you? Vlad in turn notes that he doesn't have one of them in his class, so it would be best to do more joint training. Aizawa in turn agrees, saying they need to be prepared for anything. Once the two young seekers had gathered their gear again, Izuku opened up his holotome and got the mission they were tasked with. Mission, the Caverns of Empty Fuji. Find the source of the magical disturbance underneath Empty Fuji. Recover any information or titans there. Izuku said as he took the card. However, unbeknownst to the two seekers, they had been overheard. The red-haired boy Kirishima Aijiro was wanting to talk with Asahi after that incident at the practice field. Following him was the pink-skinned girl Ashido Mina and the blonde Kaminari Denki. On the other side, Yanagi Reiko had seen the two and was hoping to talk with Asahi more. And Achiko Uraraka and Ida Tenya were wanting to talk to Izuku. They all overheard the mission they had been given and were confused. The seekers nodded to each other and headed out. While Ida and Kirishima wanted to confront them, the others asked them to be quiet and said they should follow them. While Ida was not wanting to get too much in their personal business, the rest were curious on what the two strange quirkless students were going to do. After an afternoon train ride up to Empty Fuji, the students and seekers were ready. Let's do this, Izuku. Right behind you, Asahi. The two said as they made their way down a lava tube cavern. Ida was still wanting to talk with them, but the others kept stopping him. When they also entered the cavern, they heard a rumbling behind them. Holy SHT, the cave is coming down. Run! Kaminari shouted as the rest ran forward. Once the rumbling had stopped, they all started freaking out about what to do. What are you doing here? Izuku said with a bolt flare light next to him. While Izuku and Asahi were getting some basic scans of the area with their holotomes, they heard the rumbling behind them and ran to see what was going on. Izuku saw 5 of his classmates and 1 extra he didn't know next to the collapsed entrance and asked, what are you doing here? On the other hand, Asahi knew who the other was. Reiko? Is that you? Said girl looked up and saw the floating lights next to the seekers. Ida was the first to get up and start checking the collapsed part of the cavern. While he was panicking on how they would get out, Kirishima decided to say what he wanted to Asahi. Look man. I'm really pissed about that whole brainwash thing you did to me earlier. And while I know we're in a dangerous situation right now, I still want an apology for that. Asahi is a bit confused but thinks back and realizes that he didn't apologize for that. And while part of him wants to snark back at him, the more sensible side wins out. You're right. Sorry about that. I just annoyed by all the talk of quirks and everything when they've made the world worse. This shocks most standing there, and even Ida trips after face faulting. Izuku on the other hand just face palms. Mina though is the first to say some more to both of them. I remember a little bit from when we were kids. And Midori, I know you had some weird skills, but you've never really told me what is going on. So, and I'm guessing you both are getting tired of explaining all of this, but can you tell us what is going on? And who or what exactly you are? And while Reiko isn't saying the same thing, Asahi can tell she is thinking it from the look in her eye. The seekers look at each other before sighing. They were still waiting on their holotomes to finish scanning, so at least they had some time. Asahi decides to start first with the true history of the world around them. About the powers and creatures that have been in the world since time immemorial. Reiko is more and more amazed at what Asahi is a part of, while the rest are even more shocked that there have been heroes of greater capability than All Might. Let alone the fact that Asahi is descended from two lines that have saved the world multiple times. So all the creatures of myth and legend from around the world. They are actually those titan things you summon? Ida asks, and the seekers just nod. Reiko decides to speak up next, talking about more of the history. And over 300 years ago your ancestor fought against multiple dangerous entities to save all of civilization. Technically, both 300 years ago and 10,000. The one 300 years ago married into the Castorwill family. So, I'm actually related to the noble houses of the Castorwills. At the mention that he is a noble, Ida is the first to bow before someone he views as higher status. Asahi just waves him off, saying that the status didn't really matter to him for the most part. Kirishima on the other hand had a different thought. These powers you guys can use. You said any quirkless person now has the potential to use them? Izuku nodded before taking over the explanation. He mentioned that the ancient enemy that Asahi's family faced is growing stronger. And unfortunately, they will a lot of prime recruits and candidates. Ashido, you remember Bakugo, right? At Mina's nod, Izuku goes into explaining the bullying he had experienced thanks to being quirkless. All of them looked down and thought about the fact that even if they wouldn't be ones to push them around. I hate to admit it, but I don't know if I'd really be willing to defend a quirkless person. Denki said with a look on his face that showed he was disappointed with himself. The others all looked to each other and mentally thought about what they may do. Before they can finish though, Izuku continues his explanation. Yeah, and unfortunately it's that mentality that is giving the BLD spirals more recruits. If it hadn't been for Asahi, there could have been a chance I would have joined them. And with all the loneliness, hate and anger I probably would have felt, I doubt I would have felt remorse at taking anyone with a quirk out. While Achiko is a bit frightened by that statement, she knows he has a point. And besides, but he did find you. And you made a friend who would try to show you some of the good. And while we may not have earned a lot of trust given what we've done today, I hope you both can think of us as friends at some point. She says with a warm smile on her face. Reiko in turn smiles as well, looking to Asahi. Once that was said though, both boys' holotomes started beeping. They picked the devices up and it showed 3D map of most of the caverns. This is impressive technology. Where did you get it? Ida says while chopping his hands. It's mostly standard issue tech for seekers. We use holotomes to get missions, scan maps, and titans. Izuku says before demonstrating with his Caliban. Caliban. Attack, 8 defense, 4 type, Meso Titan Warrior. Size average. Special ability, power attack. While the others are oohing at the graphics and descriptions, Asahi decides to show his strongest Titan. Tauros. Attack, 6 defense, 6 type, Chrono Titan Warrior. Size large. Special ability enduring body. Most are also oohing at that, but Ijiro points out that, wait. The smaller one has a higher attack. How does that work? Asahi chuckles a bit before explaining that the size usually can add about another 5 to 10 points of power to each stat, depending on how big it is. Also, it's more of a general application. Reiko saw how strong my Tauros was. Okay, we may have to split up Asahi. I agree. These caverns look like they are leading to a similar point. But it's hard to tell what that point is. With that, the groups divide up. Asahi with Reiko, Mina and Ijiro. And Izuku guiding Ida, Denki and Ochako. Listen, you guys. You have to listen to us with whatever happens. Okay. Izuku says with a severe look on his face. Asahi backs this up with a similar look before saying, we know what we may be dealing with. But you guys. Well, frankly and no offense, don't belong here. I'll probably explain on the trip. While most of them are confused, Ochako and Reiko agree quickly. With a nod, the boys bring out their titans. Red Searcher. Springer. As they were doing the summoning, their classmates were looking on in interest. At the sight of the Yama Titan, most of them were a bit creeped out. The girls, however, were gushing over how cute Springer looked. All of a sudden, Springer jumped from Asahi's shoulder to Reiko's and nuzzled up to her face. Oh my gosh, that thing is so adorable. Ochako and Mina gushed. Alright, that's enough. We'll go down the right tunnel. Izuku, you go left. With an affirmative, the groups head out. As they are walking, the seekers keep moving their bolt flare lights around. I was wondering, Midoriya, what is generating that light? Ida asked after walking for a while. Izuku just looks back at him and sighs before just casting another bolt flare. Ida has a moment where he looks sheepish, while Denki and Ochako laugh a bit. A little after this, they walk through an area with what looks like metal sticking out of the walls. Be very careful here. And just as he says that, Denki trips over a rock. Ow, what the heck? The blonde says as he pulls out his phone to check at his feet. Kaminari, don't. But it is too late. Denki turns on his flashlight and it bounces around, setting off some traps. Ida looks around before deciding to try and grab all of them. But Izuku moves first, shouting, touch ram, and blasting both Ida and Denki back. He then grabs Ochako around the waist and hyperstrides away before casting rope trick on a stalactite above. When the traps go off, Ida sees a variety of effects that he would have impossible for him to dodge. Denki, on the other hand, looks like he is about ready to wet himself from all the danger he just put himself in. Once the traps have reset, the two boys hurry up and see both Izuku and Ochako blushing while they are hanging from the ceiling. Once down, Ochako sheepishly thanks Izuku. No problem. Remember what we said at the start. Listen to us. Izuku says pointedly to Denki, who tries to defend himself by saying, how was I supposed to know what was gonna happen? I'm not a treasure hunter. I don't understand. Why? Did Kaminari's light set off the trap when yours didn't, Midoriya? Ida asked, and the other two also looked to him. Izuku just sighs with a smile before saying, bolt flare is a magical light. I passed by because this is an area for seekers only. This shocks the rest and realize more of what Asahi meant. They really didn't belong there. While that is happening, Asahi is faced with his own magic puzzle. Ha! Looks like some manyogana here. Let's see what it says. As he said that, he maneuvered his bolt flare closer. Dude, why don't you just use your phone's flashlight? It probably brighter. Ijiro says, reaching into his pocket. Asahi turns back and rushes at him, grabbing his hand. Don't do that. No one, take out your phones and use the light. You'll either get all of us killed, or badly injured. With how serious his face is, the others heed his advice. Okay. Now let's see here. The separation of night and day. What does that oh? Springer. Asahi called out and maneuvered his light around a few other places. There. The old symbol for moon. And this one here is sun. As he said that, both Springer and Asahi touched the symbols and a wall opened up. Whoa. What was that about? Mina asked, seeing two amulets on a pedestal behind the wall. Asahi picked up the amulets but could only bond with one. He scanned it and it said the one he bonded with was a barrage titan. Asahi then explained, this was a treasure hidden by the last ones to use this cave. Aside from the traps, they wanted to make sure that those who would gain this power, would know their legends. Mina and Ijiro are confused, but Reiko had an idea on what he meant. As well as why they had to be extra careful. This cavern is supposed to be for seekers only. Isn't it? Reiko asks, and the other two have an even more confused look. Asahi on the other hand smiles before saying, yeah. The last ones to use this set of caves were a group of powerful seekers. This makes the other two panic a bit before getting closer to Asahi, so they have a better chance of surviving. After a few more traps to avoid and eventually meeting up with Izuku's group, the seekers realize what the last challenge is. And confirm who originally used this cave. They reconvene at a center point with a strange round stone blocking their path. Okay, this may sound weird, but we need someone to dance in front of this stone. We'll play some music on our holotones. All of the others are confused, but Mina is happy to dance and show off a bit. This probably won't be anything like what you think, but we'll try to change it a bit so you can dance to it. At that, a slightly techno version of Kagura music starts playing. While Mina has no idea what is going on, let alone how to dance to that kind of music, she eventually gets into a rhythm and performs some impressive moves. The other members of her class are impressed with her athleticism and Ijiro paying close attention to her. Eventually, as the music stops, the large rock flashes and moves to the side. When they walk in, Ida is the first to gape in amazement at the priceless Han-era paintings and golden treasures. Achiko, however, passes out at the sight of so much gold, jewels and treasures. The others are amazed at the sights before them, with three of them looking to grab as much as they can take. This isn't what the two seekers are looking for though. They walk up to a special pedestal with a sword, a bronze mirror, and a Magatama necklace. You thinking what I'm thinking? Izuku says to Asahi. Who nods before saying, yeah. Each of these has a titan. But which is which? Reiko decides to walk up and put her own thoughts in. This is the cavern of Amaterasu, isn't it? That was what was up with the answer puzzle you solved earlier, and why we needed a Shido to dance. Amaterasu was a seeker, wasn't she? While the other members of their group are stunned, both Izuku and Asahi are impressed. Dead on. She, Aim no Yuzum, and Susanoo were all seekers. This was her cave. While in the legend she shut herself in here after an incident Susanoo caused, the Foundation believes it was a place she went to protect her treasures, and train with her powers. This stuns the others even more. Not one but three of the primordial gods of their country, were in fact seekers. Ordinary humans who could bond with creature of incredible power. Reiko then walked up to the pedestal with the mirror and grabs the artifact. Both Izuku and Asahi are surprised and ready to jump in case something went off. But nothing happened. Reiko then presented the mirror to Asahi. The mirror was the object used to surprise her so she would come out of her cave. It stands to reason that it was the artifact that represented her. Asahi takes it, but notices something odd. But he puts that aside for now as the other two artifacts disappear. He then looks to her with a smile saying, "You had a feeling something like that was going to happen, right?" Reiko then looks up at him nodding before explaining that the other two were fakes to lure treasure hunters. Asahi nods before saying he needs to read up more on his motherland. Reiko and Izuku laugh at that while the others are more and more confused. Izuku eventually finds a new titan though, this being a Yama titan called Ronin. At the mention of the name, a few of them wonder if this is where the title of Ronin from the feudal eras came from. Well, let's see what he can do. Izuku says before scanning the titan. Ronin. Attack, 5 defense, 3 type, Yama Titan warrior. Size, average. Special ability, dual wielding. With that done, the two seekers give a specific instruction to the rest of the group. You guys can take one thing from here. 1. And sorry, but we will be erasing some of your memories. It's better that no one comes up here and tries to loot this place. Ida at first wants to say that this belongs in a museum, but Asahi stops him. I know what you're thinking, and while I would like to put these on display, we can't risk it. There are a few things here that are cursed. At the mention of a curse, the group panics again, but Ochiko decides to ask a bigger question. If I took something and sold it, would that be alright? Most of them are confused at why she is questioning that, and she tells a bit about her family. Asahi HMS a bit before saying, how about this instead, Izuku and I are going back to my house for a debrief. If you want, you could sell the piece you want to take to my father, and he can keep the item safe. Until you feel like you want to keep it. Ochiko is surprised at the offer but agrees. Ida commends Asahi for his offer and asks to take one of the paintings. Mina, Eijiro, and Denki instead opt for a few other pieces. Eijiro taking a sword, Denki taking a jeweled pendant, and Mina taking an impressive jade ring. Ochiko then chooses to take a golden cauldron, removing the item's gravity so she can carry it. Reiko on the other hand said she had a request once they left. With it done and the mystery solved, the seekers lead their group out of the cavern. How come the entrance is open again? Denki asks. Asahi looks back before saying, it was meant to keep those who hadn't earned the treasures or weren't worthy trapped. Since we were here, and we solved the puzzles, the entrance was reopened for us. As they are walking away and back to the park, they wonder how they will hide some of their treasures they had taken. At the end of the trail, Shiro-san is waiting with a limo for Asahi and Izuku. Young MSTR. MSTR Midoriya. I take it there were a few complications on the mission, he says while looking at their classmates. Asahi coughs, before mentioning that they need to meet with his father and the chairman for a debrief. Shiro-san raises his eyebrow but allows all of the group to ride to the Lambert home. Ochiko was already a bit out of her depth with learning Asahi was from an important family. But after seeing the car and his family home, she was a bit intimidated and slightly jealous of his family's wealth. It was when they entered that the two seekers' classmates met Asahi's parents. At seeing how warmly his mother and father greeted him and Izuku, they all relaxed a bit. I gotta say, your dad looks pretty manly with that eye patch. Indeed, he does, young man. Though that wasn't what made me fall for my husband. Haruka said while tittering a bit to the side. With the kids calming down, William invited them to the tea room to discuss a few matters. After they all had a drink of green tea, William decided to get down to business. Now then, I know Asahi allowed you to take some things from the vault. However, I have to strongly advise that you leave the artifacts in question with me. Some of those could put rather large targets on your backs. For you young Ida, I would say that you could probably keep that one you have. I take it you had something in mind with the painting? Ida stood up and bowed before explaining his reasoning. The painting is of the Battle of Susanoo against Yamato no Orochi. In many ways it is a symbol of justice and what heroes should strive for. I was thinking of giving it to my parents or my brother. William nodded before Eijiro asked who his parents were, and he went of a spiel of pride about his brother and family tradition of being heroes. William smiled a bit more at the mention of being a legacy of heroes. It seems we have something in common with that. Young Ida. Indeed, Lambert-sama. And while I know you may want to stop me from saying that, I do want to show respect to a man who has helped protect others longer than many pro heroes could. Ida says, bowing again. While the others are hesitant to give up the treasures they took, they know William makes a good point. Denki asks, but we can still get them when we're a bit older, right? Like maybe after we become pros? Haruka decides to speak up and agrees with the young man's suggestion. At that age you should be better able to handle something this expensive. Denki's smile falls a bit and acknowledges that it is something that would come with age and experience. Mina and Ijiro acknowledge this as well and give the artifacts to Shiro-san. Achiko is the next one to speak, and she just asks right out, how much would you be willing to pay for this cauldron I brought back? She sets the object down gently and returns the gravity to it. It still thuds a bit on the ground but doesn't leave a mark on the hardwood. William and Haruka take the time to examine the piece. From the intricate etchings and detail work of the gold to the gems around the rim and the writing along the side. After a few minutes, William walks out and comes back with a check for Achiko. When she looks at the amount, she all but passes out again. She had never seen that many zeros in her life. Even Ida was shocked by the amount William was willing to offer. I may have another offer as well. Achiko shakes out of her stupor and looks up at William. He then goes on to explain that they could use a good construction company to help develop a few areas around the town. Unfortunately, when they find out I'm from overseas and quirkless, they're all quick to turn up their noses. At hearing that, the students realize there is much more bias towards these people than they ever knew. But Achiko knows her parents wouldn't turn them away for those kinds of reasons. So, she agrees to pass on the offer to them. As she is saying that, her eyes start to well up with tears. Wait. Why am I crying? I'm sorry, I don't dash. Before she can finish, William had walked over and patted her head endearingly. All with an easygoing smile on his face. As she started to cry more, the man and his wife pulled the girl into a hug, while she let out as many happy tears as she felt were needed. While watching this, Ida and the rest were more and more impressed with the compassion and kindness these people had shown. Ijiro even broke down in manly tears himself, while Mina was getting misty from the amount of happiness and good she had seen. Asahi and Izuku on the other hand weren't surprised, and Reiko was smiling at the nice scene before her. Once that was done, and Achiko had relayed William's offer to her parents, they said it was time to simple mind them. Ijiro was a bit nervous given what he had been through with said spell. When William noticed this and asked, Asahi came clean along with Ijiro telling what had happened. Both Haruka and William were disappointed, and William gave Asahi a light smack to the back of his head, before saying he was grounded. With that done, they wiped part of their memories dealing with where the cavern of Amaterasu was. All except for Reiko. She had asked to keep her memories and to come along for the other treasures of the gods. While a bit skeptical, William was willing to allow it. When Izuku explained, she figured out the history of the cave as well as which treasure represented Amaterasu. Not bad. I guess it couldn't hurt. I think we could allow it for now. Now then, let's get you all home, shall we? Asahi though looked like he wanted to talk a bit more with Reiko, but his mother stopped him. You can talk with your girlfriend after your punishment has ended. At the mention of girlfriend, both Reiko and Asahi blushed up a storm. Mina on the other hand was in full shipping mode and slipped alongside Haruka to tease the two a bit more. Okay, that's enough. Like I said, let's get these kids home. Shiro. If you give him your addresses, he'll drive you home. William said with a smile. Then he turned to Asahi with a light frown before saying, as for you, young man. You're going straight up to your room and working on your homework. Without the internet. You know I can make a dead zone around an area. And no games or shows for a month. Also, no talking to your girlfriend outside of school. At hearing he would be without internet, a few like Mina and Denki were extra dramatic. But Asahi knew he did deserve it. He had done just like their enemies, the BLD Spiral. Even if he had only done it in light fun, he still abused his power. When they walked out, Reiko and Asahi spent a few moments just talking about various myths and stories she would like to talk about with him. As she was getting in to leave, she looked back at Asahi with a light smile. Asahi in turn was smiling too. On the way back, Mina was prodding Reiko more and more about her and Asahi. Izuku decided to help her and suggested to Shiro-san to drop Mina off first. While Mina was awing, Reiko just looked over at him and mouthed a thank you. Izuku for his part was talking a bit with Ochiko and Ida about what the next day at UA could be like. When everyone got to school the next day, there were some who were hoping they would jump right into more heroics and quirk usage classes. But no. Instead, for 3 days it was focused on normal classes. While most were bored and somewhat dreading this pattern, a few didn't mind too much. Izuku did exceptionally well with Japanese history and literature. While Asahi was well liked by President Mike given he could understand his classes better than the rest. But after 3 days of just general classes, it was time for the first true hero class. I am coming through the door like a hero. All Might announced as burst into the classroom. The cheers from the students were all quite excitable. Be it discussing his costume being from his silver age of heroism, or extra excitement at the fact he is now their teacher. Now then, students of 1A. I'll have to ask that you take your costumes and head towards ground beta. I'd give more of an explanation, but I have to meet with class 1B as well. At that mention a few were confused. They thought he would teach the two classes separately. But Izuku had an idea what this was about. It's because of us. There are only 2 seekers in the hero course. 3 in the whole of UA, so he feels it would be best if all of the students got an idea on how we operate. With that thought out of the way, Izuku collects his suitcase and heads down to change. He and Asahi both went for more of a simple style for their hero costumes. Asahi had bodysuit on under his other clothes. More of a last resort protection. Izuku on the other hand went for at least a type of easy masked top. For pants, both went with a more casual style of cargo jeans. But for the top, Asahi went with wearing a light leather jacket that went down a little below his waist. When they had reached ground beta, the 2 seekers got a good look at the other hero class. So these are some of the big shots of 1A. The 2 at the back don't look like much. A blonde student who looked to be dressed in a tuxedo said in a condescending tone. Before either Izuku or Asahi could respond, the boy was hit from behind by a floating piece of rubble. This was courtesy of the resident ghost girl, Reiko. Leave them alone, Monoma. Or I'll personally throw you over the edge. She said with an angry look in her one sleepy eye. Asahi decided to step up and talk with her. Don't worry about it too much, Rei. The kimono looks really good. When he said that, Reiko blushed, but no one could see it thanks to the mask she was wearing. Some of the other girls though were quietly observing, with Mina doing even more shipping than usual. Alright then, you zygotes. Let's get down to business. We're jumping a few steps ahead today. You be fighting each other in these buildings. And we'll be having an extra special guest for this exercise. As All Might said that, out from behind him came Melissa Shield. She herself also wearing semi-costume much like Izuku and Asahi. Melissa. Hey there. Izuku called out while Asahi also called to her. When they both walked over to talk, the various other students were curious about their relationship. For ones like Mineta and Kaminari, they were both jealous that the 2 knew such a hot girl. For Reiko and Ochiko, the jealousy was more about that their crushes were close with an attractive older girl. The rest were confused as to who this was. But when Asahi and Izuku turned back to the rest, a few noticed that all 3 were wearing amulets. Wait a moment. She has a necklace just like those 2. Does that mean she is? Ida announced, then trailed off. So, All Might finished his thought. Indeed. These 3 are all part of a group of people who have been protecting the world from behind the scenes from thousands of years. They are all seekers. All of Class 1A was amazed, especially the ones who went on the mission a few days before. Reiko too was shocked to see more people of the world few knew about. What are you talking about, All Might? What the heck are seekers? A boy with white hair and strange rims around his eyes asked. All Might decided to wait to give the explanation as he needed to get the students moving forward. As he said that, he went on to explain that many villains operate behind closed doors and that they would be training with that in mind. So the situation is as follows. As he said that, All Might pulled a script from behind his back. Melissa was just shaking her head as he read from the crumpled papers. The villains are holed up in a building with a nuclear weapon. The hero's duty is to capture the villains or retrieve the weapon before the time runs out. For the villains, they must protect the weapon and achieve victory by capturing the heroes or stalling till time runs out. While most are thinking it sounds very American, the actual American in the group is facepalming and wondering which old movie her uncle and dad had watched to get the idea for this. With that done, All Might then told the students that they would be drawing lots to decide the teams. Asahi wasn't a huge fan of that idea, but he understood the mentality. Normally we seekers keep to the teams with always work with. But this forces us to have to adapt and adjust to our partner. With that done, the drawing commences. Team A, Midoriya Izuku and Achiko Uraraka. Team B, Ida Tenya and Tsuburaba Kozai. Team C, Yanagi Reiko and Kodai Yui. Team D, Todoroki Shoto and Mizo Shoji. Team E, Hagakure Toru and Shiozaki Ibra. Team F, Tetsu and Koda Koji. Team G, Minoma Nito and Mineta Minoru. Team H, Asahi Lambert and Tokeiichi Setsuna. Team I, Komori Kinoko and Awaze Yosetsu. Team J, Aoyama Yuga and Ishido Mina. Team K, Kirishima Aijiro and Fukudashi Manga. Team L, Bondo Kojiro and Rin Hiryu. Team M, Tsunatori Pony and Ojiro Mashiro. Team N, Kaminari Denki and Jiro Kyoka. Team O, Azui Tsuyu and Hananuki Juzo. Team P, Shoda Narenjiki and Kurwaro Shirhai. Team Question Kamakiri Tagaru and Siro Hanada. Team R, Yayorozu Momo and Kaibara-sen. Team S, Shishida Jiroda and Tokoyami Fumikichi. Team T, Sato Rikido and Kendo Itsuka. With the teams made, a few took the time to get to know their new partners. Though some were more annoyed about who they were paired up with. Why couldn't I be lucky enough to be paired with a hot girl from either class? Mineta cried out. His partner had a different thought. Great. So, I'm stuck with a perv from Nose in the Air Class 1A group. Minoma said with a scoff. Achiko and Izuku though were both happy about who they were paired with. With Izuku blushing when he was looking at Achiko, he said, "Let's do the best we can, Uraraka." Yeah. Let's win this, Izuku. Achiko said with a big smile on her face. Asahi was having a different issue since his partner decided to flirt with him a bit. And poked him in a few places. Hey! Bad touch. Knock it off. He shouted at the lizard girl. What said girl didn't notice was that Reiko was looking at her with annoyance. Now then. Well, start choosing opponents for each based on lots as well. I will also add Melissa to a team that doesn't have either of the seekers in the match. That way you can experience what seekers can do and how they may differ from one to another. All Might said before using the computer to decide the matches. When it was done, these were the matchups. When asked about the asterisk, All Might explained that would be the team that would have Melissa to fight with them. So now that you all know who you are fighting, let's get right to it. Team A will be setting up in the building to defend their weapon. Team E, you have 5 minutes to get ready and plan to face your opponents. With his explanation given, both teams set out after wishing each other good luck. When Izuku and Achiko reached the room with the dummy weapon, they started discussing possible plans. Hey, could you use your big titan to stop them right away? Izuku shook his head and explained, that would be a really bad idea. With these enclosed spaces, it would be better to use small and medium titans. But I have a few ideas on ways I can fight them. Also, I think I have an idea on how we can use your abilities to really throw them off. With that last part, Izuku had a slightly sinister smile. It unsettled Ochako, but she guessed he was just getting into the role of a villain. His opponents though were discussing the possible ways to fight the unorthodox opponents. So, what exactly is a seeker? Shiozaki asked Toru, who just shrugged. At least Shiozaki guessed she was shrugging from the movement of the gloves the invisible girl wore. I don't know the details, but apparently those two have powers only Quirkless can use. Asahi was kinda rude about the way he used his against Kirishima-kun. It let him take over his mind. But they also have energy blasts and enhancing tricks as well. And that isn't even counting all of the titans, creatures they can summon. Shiozaki was terrified by the description of what all Izuku and Asahi had for potential. So, they built a plan around Shiozaki drawing attention while Toru would go for the weapon. With that set and All Might announcing the start of the operation, the two heroes went in to face the villains. When they reached the third floor of the building and didn't see any traps, they both started to worry. They had each taken separate staircases but were staying in radio contact. On the fifth floor though, Shiozaki came face to face with Izuku. Said boy was leaning up against the wall with a relaxed smile on his face. Sorry hero, but you aren't getting to that weapon anytime soon. Augur Frost. With a shout he fired a cold blast of light at the vine girl. She dodged out of the way and used her vines to try and trap Izuku. But he was ready for it and nimble fired away, while letting off a repulse and touch ram to distract the green-haired girl. This did throw her off, but not for long. Hagakure-san. The weapon might be here on the fifth floor. I've engaged Midoriya-san. Sneak carefully and be on the lookout for Uraraka-san. With a Roger from Toru, both headed toward their objective. When Shiozaki found Izuku again, he was in the middle of a large room. She couldn't tell what he was up to, so she lifted herself in on her vines to try and get close for a grab. What she didn't expect though was for the ground to be sticky on both her vines and her feet. She struggled to get free but Izuku wasn't having it. But not the Izuku she saw. Augur Frost, she heard called out from behind her. She turned and saw Izuku behind her with a big smile on his face. He called out the spell a few more times and made sure that the vine girl wasn't going anywhere. Whoa! What the heck was that? A few in the audience room said as they saw the other Izuku behind Shiozaki and freezing her in place. Bondo was interested in the substance that was trapping his classmate, thinking that it was just like his power. I didn't know he learned that spell. Did you know that, Asahi? Melissa asked her fellow blonde seeker. Asahi shook his head but was impressed at Izuku's creativity with the spell. When everyone else around them looked their way, they figured they should explain. It's a special power called Thought Spectre. It lets a person conjure illusions. And they're almost impossible to tell from reality. I heard that back in the day an obelisk was enchanted with the spell, and it was so strong it covered an entire island in illusions. This makes more people drop their jaws before turning back to the screen. While Izuku was capturing Shiozaki and making sure she couldn't report it to her partner, Toru had managed to maneuver around a few traps that were near a big door. When she opened the door, she saw the weapon there completely unguarded. So, she ran towards it to try and grab it. But when she got there, she passed right through it. What the? What's going on? You fell for an illusion. And now you're stuck. Toru turned and saw Izuku standing there. Izuku had planned for the likely scenario with these two. Flashback. We're not keeping the weapon here. We're gonna move it. And Uraraka, you'll be the one to get it to its new destination. At saying that, Ochako was confused on what Izuku had planned. Izuku smiled and explained what he figured the other team would do. We both know Hagakure is invisible, so she'll try to sneak in and grab the weapon without either of us knowing it. Though I'll know. The last sentence was said under his breath as he explained that he could create illusions that should fool their opponents. Ochiko was seeing how he could get the job of trapping the enemy done much better than she could. Okay. So you want me to move the weapon to a different location? Taking advantage of the fact I can remove its gravity, right? At Izuku's affirmative, she does just that and takes the dummy weapon to a point 2 floors up. With that, Izuku sets a few obvious traps and heads for the staircase Shiozaki is coming up. She wasn't going to be able to sneak by me anyway. Izuku thought while he was leaning against the wall. Flashback end. Toru was trying to sneak away as best she could, but Izuku kept looking right at her. A few times he even blasted her or the ground next to her. How is he doing that? No choice. I'll try to rush him and see if I can dodge anything he throws at me. Toru goes for broke and runs at Izuku, but she gets stopped by a slip snare grabbing her ankle and hanging her up from the ceiling. Rope trick. Izuku calls out and wraps Toru up in some rope he conjured up. With that done and time running out, the villain team are called the victors. Izuku helps Toru down by cutting the snare and slowing her fall with feather drop. He then uses his Ignatius to melt the frozen glue holding Shiozaki and they all head for the observation room. When they get there, everyone was clamoring to ask Izuku how he did all of that. But All Might stopped them for now. Now then, I would say young Midoriya is the MVP of this exercise. Can anyone tell me why? Momo was the first to raise her hand. She then explains, Midoriya took this whole exercise seriously from the start. He knew the likely ways his opponents would approach the mission and planned accordingly. He even made sure to fake out the opponent in a few ways. All Might was impressed by the young girl's reasoning and nodded before adding, he made sure to have a way to keep an eye on the more elusive opponent. At that, Toru decided to ask Izuku how he knew where she was. Izuku just smiled and waved his hand down before saying, camouflage. And dispersing the camouflage he put over his red searcher titan. While most were creeped out by the creature, the ones who tagged along on the mission recognized it. Oh yeah. That thing has special eyes. Didn't you say you can see things that are invisible with that titan? Kaminari asked bluntly. Toru was extra embarrassed as that meant Izuku had seen her well everything. Izuku coughed in his hand before saying, technically yes. We use titans like Red Searcher to find hidden traps and the like. So, I had it fly down to the lower floors and wait to find you Hagakure. While she is still embarrassed, Toru has to admit it was a smart plan. While the rest of the student were a bit unsure of how they could face off against people with abilities like this. But there was no time for that now. The next match had to get underway. All of the hero students were surprised at the skill and tricks Izuku had shown during his bout. All Might decided to give them a more detailed but still abbreviated version of what Seekers were. In the very distant past, the Seekers protected the world from a monstrous enemy from another world. Is that correct, young Lambert? At Asahi's nod, All Might continued by explaining, thousands of years ago, one of young Lambert's ancestors first opened the way to the Titan world. He, his followers, and his family fought against the nullifiers for centuries. And when they were finally defeated, he was able to pass peacefully. Since then, Seekers have been protecting the world by keeping magic hidden or secreting it away. But they may not have that luxury much longer. When All Might finished, Ijiro was quick to speak up next. Saying that a few of them saw firsthand how dangerous the missions the two had to do. I'm not so sure most heroes could handle it. All Might maybe. But that's thanks to his crazy power. All Might then admitted that a friend of the Seekers had saved his life. Saying that the person who was considered the top Seeker for their organization had fought on par with him and protected him from a grievous wound. This statement shocks the rest of the students, while the Seekers are surprised, he would admit that so readily. He then claps his hands quick and says they need to get on with the battle trials. Now then, young Tokage and Lambert. Take your positions at the building. Yanagi and Kodai, head for where the bomb is. I'll announce when to start the exercise. With an affirmative from the students, the teams head out. But Reiko catches Setsuna surreptitiously lifting up Asahi's jacket to check him out from behind. And she doesn't like it. When the two on the hero side arrive at the base of the building, Asahi decides to make her stop the hard way. "Touch ram," he says calmly and blasts her back. "Ow. What the heck? Yeah, how would you feel if I was just undressing you with my eyes constantly? And don't make some pervy crack. Play this straight," he says with a serious face. Setsuna wants to joke a bit but knows he is still holding back. So, she agrees. "Yeah, you're right. Sorry. I want to say I'm simply curious but that a terrible excuse. Anyway. My power is lizard splitter. I can separate my body into about 50 pieces and can move each piece independently. Have you got any powers like what Midoriya used?" Asahi shook his head. He explained, "I didn't learn that spell, but I do have a few others in mind." "How long can you keep those pieces floating?" Setsuna smirks before saying she can fly for the whole time. Asahi nods before telling her what he has in mind as All Might calls the start of the match. Reiko is extra annoyed right now. She knew Tokage was a bit flirty and chatty, but she had crossed some lines. "You okay, Yanagi?" Kodai asked her teammate. Reiko coughed before saying she was fine. "You should use your quirk to seal up the doors." "Actually no. You should head for the stairwells first. Use it there to stall them. Asahi doesn't have a titan or power that lets him melt trough things that fast today." "Wait, how do you know that?" Kodai asks in her usual monotone voice, but Reiko blushes before saying there was no reason. Kodai's eyes narrow a bit but she just shrugs and moves on. "I should probably seal both sides of the door when I get back," she says as All Might gives the start signal. Reiko agrees and stays with the weapon. While she does, she keeps letting what happened get to her. Until she hears Kodai call out that she had heard Asahi and Setsuna a floor below. Sound like Setsuna is up to trouble. Apparently, she can't keep her hands to herself. This gets Reiko incised again and asks if the size-shifting girl had sealed all the stairwells. When she says one was still clear, Reiko tells her to come back and bar the doors. "I want to have a little word with our reptilian classmate." Even though Kodai can't see Reiko's face, she gets chills from the tone of her voice. Setsuna, noticing that only one stairwell wasn't barred, heads for that one. She floats her head in first. Then gets her chest, legs and feet up to the floor. But Reiko decides to bring the house down on her. Or on her other parts. As she was floating in, Reiko had pulled some of the ceiling that was loose down and dropped it on Setsuna's legs and feet. "Ow. What the? Oh God." Setsuna says before she notices that Reiko has a hold of her chest section. And is currently pinching her melons tightly as well as stepping on Setsuna's rear. Grinding her heel into the lizard girl's parts. This makes Setsuna not only squeal from pain but also embarrassment. Not so much fun when you're the one being touched all over, is it? Reiko says with a dark look in her one eye. "Hey now Reiko. Let's just calm down here. Please." "Oh, not there." Setsuna is saying with varying intensity due to the mixture of pleasure, pain, and embarrassment. Reiko then uses her quirk to make Setsuna's head spin around a few times, before tossing it into the walls and ceiling. When the girl is significantly dazed, Reiko brings her head in to make her final statement. But before that can be said, she hears a crash coming from the room with the weapon. When she gets there, All Might has already called the hero team the victors. Reiko still has a hold of Setsuna, so the lizard splitter girl just asks, "Can I have my tips back now?" In the room with the weapon, Asahi had crashed in with his Azura Titan, his Soul Wing and a freelancer. The sudden entrance shocked Kodai and she couldn't stop it when Azura ran up and grabbed her. And Asahi grabbed the weapon, ending the exercise. When they are all walking back, Reiko just asks the two from the hero team, "You planned that, didn't you?" She still has a dark look on her face and Setsuna is scared/excited that she might get another punishment. Asahi is also a bit intimidated, but eventually explains himself. Look, it wasn't my idea fully. I just suggested that we needed a distraction so I could move in from the outside. He explained that he was planning to use his spider touch spell so he could walk along the outside and charge in from a direction they wouldn't expect. Look, I'll take a bit of the heat on this one, Reiko. He used that camouflage trick we saw Midoriya used and hid my eye and an ear. When I saw how irritated you were, I kinda took advantage and did that. Though I wasn't expecting you to be that KNKY with it. All but one person walking back was blushing. Reiko was still mad but did see the wisdom in the strategy. Once back at the observation room, All Might awarded the MVP to Asahi and Kodai. The former for going for a smart approach with breaching the weapon room. Rarely do villains or even some heroes think to come from the outside. Well done. As for Kodai though, she made a good use of her power to block the routes that most would assume would be used. She even had a few on standby, I noticed, but the surprise of the Titans and Asahi caused her to slip up. And Reiko and Setsuna were having that whole KNKY show out in the hallway. Seriously, All Might, could I be excused to the restroom for a moment? Oddly enough, it is not Mineta who asks that but Tsubarabra. Itsuka and Juzo just facepalm before All Might denies his request. A few of the other boys were also uncomfortable, and some of the girls had massive blushes. All Might just groans and tells them all to be back in 5 minutes or they'll get a letter grade drop. Most of the ones get back in no time. Again, though, Mineta isn't one to go off to the restroom. Instead, he seems to have passed out from the RSNG scene. With a happy lecherous smile on his face. All Might just facepalms. Again. The next match is between the last seeker to tag along with the group, Melissa Shield. Her teammates couldn't be on opposite ends of the spectrum. The bug-mandibled student Kamakiri was talking about wanting to get into a fight right away. Zero though was wanting to set some traps and wait it out. If Shield-san is like Midoriya and Lambert, then we don't need to fight them directly, right? Zero asked the blonde girl. Kamakiri was going off again that it wasn't the point of the exercise and they needed to take out the heroes fast. But Melissa grunts annoyed before casting stop glue on the green boy's mouth. You are going to calm down and listen. Understand? I already have a way worked out to win this. It's a little dirty, but it will get the job done well. As she is saying that, she pulls out an amulet, one with a green gem embedded into a gold shield-like structure. At the top though were 2 snake-looking protrusions. When All Might called for the start of the match, Aoyama and Mina headed in fast. With Mina skating ahead. We've got to get there fast before they have a chance to lay any traps. Aoyama agrees, but he moved much slower due to his armor and lack of mobility enhancement. Up on the 3rd floor, Kamakiri and Zero are waiting by the weapon. Does this seem like a good idea? Kamakiri asks, and Zero isn't sure himself. I want to say it should be fine, but we don't know much about Seekers. Apparently, these guys all work with a group called the Huntik Foundation. They're all about protecting people and the world. But maybe there's a different reason. Zero muses with the 1B student. When Mina gets to the 3rd floor, she skates around a bit before seeing Melissa. The acid girl smiles before saying, sorry Mel-chan. But I won't hold back. Melissa just smiles before saying, that's okay. I wasn't either. As she says that, the Titan she summoned slithers up behind the pink girl. She vaguely feels something is off, before turning around slowly. And then she looks up and see it. The Titan Medusa. In that moment, Mina is turned to stone. This terrifies everyone in the observation room. Some crying that Mina had been killed by a monster. All Might on the other hand is shocked his niece would do something that drastic. Only the Seekers are relaxed. Though both are surprised at the Titan. Didn't know she bonded to that Titan. I'm impressed. Asahi said with a look of ease on his face. Izuku was much the same and said, yeah, that's one of the harder Titans to control. And yet she's got it handled. This makes all the others look at them like they had lost their minds, especially when Aoyama came up and saw the petrified Mina. He screamed and took off in the other direction. Right into a trap Melissa had set. A slip snare and rope trick combo to stop him, and Medusa petrified him as well. Ida is the first to ask, how are you not disturbed by what she just did? She killed 2 members of our class. And you're looking at it like nothing is wrong. Because nothing is wrong, Ida. Izuku says calmly, before pointing back to the screen. Melissa had taken the capture tape and wrapped it around both Mina's arms and Aoyama's feet. She then said to Medusa, release them. The Titan's eyes flashed and both students were returned to normal. But both were freaking out as Medusa was still there. So, Melissa returned the Titan to its amulet. See? Izuku said, while the others were just shell-shocked. All Might shook it off enough to announce that the villain team had won. When they got back, they all had questions about what went down. Izuku started by saying, it's not that surprising. There's lots of myths about creatures turning people to stone. Happened to me once too. Felt weird when I woke up. The others all looked at him like he had a few screws loose. Melissa and Asahi were quick to point out that this is how villains do things. If you think the villains will hold back, you are fools. They'll come at you with whatever they can to win or succeed. And that doesn't always entail beating the hero. While All Might didn't like how she had handled the matter, he could see the wisdom and reason. With that, he gave the students a few minutes to shake off the terrifying sight they had seen. He then suggested that Mina and Aoyama go and rest in Recovery Girl's office. When that was done, the rest of the matches could continue. While none of them could shake the effects of what they had seen in front of them, they resolved to make sure that couldn't happen to them. A few teams faltered. Namely the team-up of Monoma and Mineta. They both kept arguing, so the heroes got to the weapon. Overall, the day showed many the potential each of the hero students had. With that done, All Might advised a few of them take some time to come to terms with what it means to be heroes and what risks are involved. With the class dismissed, a few hero hopefuls were having conflicting thoughts about the whole matter with the Seekers. And the fact that there were multiple evil Seekers with massive axes to grind against those with quirks. After the training battles had ended, a few of the other students were still nervous and wary of the Seekers. With a few exceptions. Most of the ones who went on the mission with them were less afraid. Though Ida was quick to question how Izuku knew what petrification was like. I got into a fight with a dangerous group of Seekers. The BLD Spirals. We were competing for the Titan Kakatal. It's a litho-titan with the power of petrification. Izuku mentioned that the Spirals had kept the power and that was a mission they somewhat failed. Asahi continued by saying that aside from Medusa there was also King Basilisk. He told them they were held by the Huntik Foundation, which was why Melissa had that titan. And there's a silver lining in a sense to them having Kakatal. It has a weakness similar to KB in that its petrification can be reflected. Also, unlike KB, the petrification isn't permanent. The other students were confused by that, so he explained that Izuku's petrification had faded after a few hours. What they found in the creature's cavern later confirmed that it was a weaker version of petrification. But unfortunately, Kakatal has a bit more variety in the ways it can petrify. Its breath can cause it as well. Though it is slower to activate. He went on to say this was one of the advantages of not getting a treasure. That at times, ancient secrets can be more valuable than any titan or treasure. This makes a few nod in contemplation and others in admiration. Others though. Mina and Aoyama though had been traumatized by the petrification incident. Even with a few of the others trying to calm them down, they kept avoiding and flinching when they saw Izuku or Asahi. And this trend continued for a few days. Even as classes continued like normal. For Melissa, she had tried to make it up to the 2 she had petrified. But they kept either running or backing away with terror in their eyes. Maybe I shouldn't have gone so far. Melissa said one day at lunch. Izuku, Ida, and Achiko were sitting with her, and while Achiko at first wanted to disagree, she too was nervous about the whole matter. Ida though did try to put her mind at ease. You were giving it your best in the match. Yes, the method was probably a bit overkill, but if anything, it gives us a better idea of what true villains and these BLD spirals could be like. Both Izuku and Achiko facepalm a bit given his rather backhanded approach to trying to ease Melissa's conscience. It sort of works. She gives a smile and thanks Ida for at least seeing a positive spin on the matter. But just as she was about to ask some other people for opinions, Hatsume and a few other support course students start talking to her. Each hoping to get insight into her designs. Though a few are trying to get her autograph. She just laughs a bit awkwardly before All Might comes in to help her. Hey Melissa. Everything going okay? I'm fine Uncle Might. Though camouflage. As she says that, she disappears and slips away while a few others have been distracted by All Might. For Class 1A though Aizawa had a big new bomb to drop on them. You have to choose a class president. With that the class gets into an uproar with each trying to nominate themselves as the representative. Wait. We should do this democratically. It is true we know very little about each other. But that can also give a greater insight into who would be best for the job. With that, and a lazy approval given by Aizawa, the ballots are cast. And somewhat to Ida's surprise, he is chosen as the class president with 4 votes. With Momo and Izuku tying as his vice. Asahi is quick to say, I know I was one of the ones who voted for you man. I saw how you took charge, and you were capable of working with someone who may not like us much given we're from rival classes. You built a plan and acted on it well, leading your team to victory. Izuku mirrors this statement as does Denki. When we got stuck in that cave following Midoriya and Lambert, you were the first to push us out of the way. And when I set off that trap, I noticed that you were planning to use your quirk to try and save all of us. I think you're the best choice. Ida then promises to do his best as the Class 1A president. Izuku then drops out of the VP slot. There may be times I have to be away with what I do as a seeker. It wouldn't be right to have this position and not uphold or do the work involved. Momo nods and comments that she will do what she can as the VP of Class 1A and try to tone down Ida's stiff nature. I'm not that stiff. I've seen Litho Titans more flexible than you dude. And they're made of rock. This gets a few people chuckling and the 2 representatives call the matter to a close. During the lunch though, Izuku, Asahi, and Melissa can feel a strange aura around and near the school. At first they think it might just be from the reporters who had gathered earlier. Until the alarm sounds, denoting the UA barrier has been breached. As the students are panicking and running for the exits, the seekers can feel the strange aura getting stronger. So, Melissa uses her Janus-EA to move the 3 of them up and away from the rush. With a nod, they head out to find wherever that aura was coming from. And on the roof, they find a few of them. Silent soldiers of the BLD spirals. So now the Huntik Foundation is playing along with these monsters. Well, no matter. Chaos will consume you and we will turn them into the instruments of that chaos. The apparent leader says before calling out his Harlequin and Sycophant. The rest follow suit with their own titans. Let's do this guys. Show them your rage. Azura. Charge, Freelancer. Asahi calls out first. Izuku continues by summoning his Caliban, and Ronin, before calling out Helix. Melissa keeps Janus-EA out before commanding, fight for your lady. Kill Thane. Bologna. With that set, the Titans and Seekers face off. Asahi opens up by rushing in with nimble fire and unleashing a flurry of punches into the leader. Before launching him back with Touch Ram. Izuku trips some of them up with Augur Frost and Bolt Flare before copying his old idol with a Dragon Fist. Melissa meanwhile uses a few other pieces as well as her spells. While still learning to be a seeker, she still enjoyed making tools and other support gear. She uses quick collapsing staff and a few other pieces that were inspired from her various other support gear she had made over the years. As they fight, each of the Huntik Foundation seekers note that the BLD spirals seem to be fairly unfocused. While they can combo and build off of each other's skills, the spirals are constantly getting hit by one another. Or getting in each other's way during an attack. It doesn't take long for over half of them to be defeated. After 10 of his troops have been beaten, the leader decides to go for broke. Enough of this. Destroy. Belgrieve. Slitherfang. With that he unleashes the large blind titan and the giant cobra titan. They both proceed to jump down and leap toward the reporters nearby. Oh hell and oh. Asahi shouts before hyperstriding in front of the two. Though with a quick wave of his hands, he casts Willwall to make a large green shield to stop them. At seeing this the reporters freak out and some are knocked back by the shockwave from the attack. Izuku and Melissa follow quickly deciding to call out their strongest titans. Show your might. Jeweled Colossus. Blast through. Mason. Melissa calls out and the floating titan of stone appears. Izuku and his Colossus face off with Slitherfang, taking advantage of the shield the Litho Titan wields. While Melissa fights Belgrieve up close with her Kilthane and Mason backs her up with blasts. But apparently the lead spiral decided that wasn't enough of a challenge. So as they were escaping with their allies, he unleashed a black bull that starts to charge as well. Asahi stops it again with the will wall, and then pushes it back with touch ram. Repel the enemy. Taros. And with that the bronze giant of Crete joins the battle. It doesn't take long for the three seekers to defeat the large titans. Though when the teacher try to get involved, they end up in the way more than anything. Just stay out of this. You and your quirks are worthless in this situation. Asahi and Izuku shout at one point before finishing off their respective opponents. Unknown to them, a few of the reporters have been taking various video footage of the whole battle. As well as noting how they recalled their titans after the fact. All Might then rushed in, apologizing for being late. I had to deal with a matter in a different prefecture. But it seems like our three seekers had everything under control. He says with a big jovial laugh. And then telling Melissa he is proud of her, causing the blonde girl to blush. This gets a few of the reporters questioning more and more about who this girl is and what all is happening at UA in the current year. But Aizawa is quick to remove the press and call the police to forcibly remove some. After that though, they ask what the seekers were doing fighting those titans. Izuku is quick to come up and explain the basics. We felt a strange aura during lunch and when the alarm went off, we decided to investigate. Those titans were a last resort for a group of BLD spirals. At hearing that name, the teachers decided to reconvene in the principal's office so they could give them a full debrief. Once there, and each having a cup of green tea in front of them, the seekers recounted the whole battle on the roof of the school. All Might again was quick to praise their efforts and what they did to protect the school. While ones like Aizawa were noting that they would have been completely overwhelmed by the silent soldiers. Even Midnight's quirk may have been useless given not only were half of the spirals that attacked female, but titans didn't need to breathe. So when he unleashed his big guns, I jumped in to save the hero distraction force. Asahi explains, but present Mike is quick to ask what he means by that. I'm betting this was a twofold attack and distraction. As well as a potential kidnapping attempt. That last dark statement makes a few of the teachers shiver, before Asahi explains his reasoning. Noting that the reporters were more than likely there to distract the heroes. While the person who broke in initially, was after something specific. And the spirals were here to cause some extra chaos and maybe grab a few students to experiment on. They do have an improved version of Simple Mind which lets them take control of weaker-minded people and use them like puppets or titans. All of the teachers nod and note that they will have to be careful in the coming days. And that Melissa will probably be more involved with the hero course and classes. We need to make sure the students are aware of what could happen. We absolutely cannot allow any of them to be taken or captured. And we will have to rely on you to aid us in that. As well as the Huntik Foundation. Nizu says with a very severe look on his otherwise smiling face. After the attack by the BLD spirals, the security at UA was beefed up even more. Not just by the usual programmers and technicians, but also by a handful of seekers from the Huntik Foundation. Truly we can't thank you enough, Lambert-san. If what your son and Midoriya said is true about these BLD spirals, we can't afford to take any chances with our students, Principal Nizu says while sitting on Aizawa's shoulder. William just smiles before saying, this is a threat we all face. And we must face it together. I'll help as best I can, but frankly some of my hero and seeker days are behind me. As William is saying this he puts a hand on his chest, and grips the spot. Nizu nods before asking if it was something they could help with. The older seeker shakes his head before saying, it's a literal curse. While it doesn't drain my life and will like the seals of the legendary titans, it has basically cut all of my power in half. I can barely make a will wall that would stop one of All Might's attacks. At that admission all of the teachers are stunned. To be able to stop a punch or any attack from All Might would be insane. But this man was claiming that he used to be able to make them all the time. This itself had All Might intrigued. I'd like to see that. I know your son can use that spell, but I'd be curious as to what you can do with it. Care to demonstrate? The big hero says. William strokes his chin before agreeing to only show it one time. They reconvene at a battleground, and both heroes get ready. All Might winds up the strongest Detroit smash he can, while William casts the will wall to stop him. The impact is so epic, that all of the spectating teachers and seekers get blown back and the weather changes above them. But when the dust settles, the green shield is still holding. In fact, there isn't a single crack on it. All Might though is shaking his hand and saying it smarted from the impact. William lets the spell dissipate and needs a second to catch his breath. If you've got that kind of power it's no wonder someone cursed you. Logical way to make sure a serious weapon would be removed, Aizawa said while walking up with the others. William smiled before saying, yeah. That was what the spirals were aiming for after they realized they didn't have time to kill me. Now I've taken to teaching the next generation. The ones here have the potential to influence the world at large. They'll help to stop the spirals and any other threat that comes out of the woodwork. Each of the teachers nod and All Might thanks the older seeker for going along with his curiosity. With that done, the next day is a special one for the students of the first-year classes. As Aizawa and can put on their blackboards, rescue. The students start to talk excitedly amongst themselves discussing how their quirks would work well in some of the situations. Hey Midoriya. Can a lot of your spells and titans actually help with hero work? Mineta asks from the seat behind the seeker. Izuku gives Mineta a slightly flat look before explaining how most of his titan strength could help in situations and especially his red searcher could find multiple people in danger. Also titans don't need to breathe so I can send some down to the bottom of the sea to rescue people if need be, Izuku explains while pulling out his holotome. He went over a few things on it to decide who to bring along for the mission. Asahi does the same before asking if Melissa would be coming along as well. She will. While she is technically older, she is still a new student to the hero course. So she will be doing a lot of missions with you first years, Aizawa says before quieting down the class. He then explains that a few teachers would be working to teach all of them. Namely Vlad King, himself and at least 2 others. Get your costumes and meet outside. We'll be going off-site for this exercise. With that said, the students got ready for their special class. But not before Asahi made a quick call. Yeah, it's Asahi. I'm good, just got a special day of class. But listen, can you monitor my holotome and phone? I just have a bad feeling. Yeah, that kind. Oh, you're close by. What are you? Really? Visiting a girlfriend? Please take this seriously, okay? Thank you. Yeah. If we go offline, call the police and maybe the school. You're totally gonna jump in, aren't you? Well, it wouldn't hurt to have you as backup. Talk to you later's aide. With his call finished, Asahi catches up with the rest of his class. Once students had reached the meetup area, Ida was trying to set them up in a type of loading order. But Kendo was quick to point out, yeah, I don't think these types of buses will require any kind of order. Ida then checked inside and found that his fellow class rep was correct. So with a dejected sigh he just loaded onto the bus with the rest of his class behind him. While on the ride to the training area, all of the students are talking among themselves about what they intend to do as heroes. Tsuyu though decides to bring up a question to Izuku and Asahi. I was wondering about a few things from yesterday. You two and Melissa-chan disappeared during the emergency. Where did you go? The two seekers shared a look, and with a sigh Izuku explains what happened on top of the school building. After hearing about who had invaded and what they were after, more of the students were concerned. Dude. That is nuts. And you three as well as those other Foundation or whatever kinds of agents have to fight that? Kaminari said with a panicked look. With a sigh as he leaned back in his seat, Asahi said, yeah. We try to find as many potential seekers as we can, but there's a lot of people who are just trying to forget or get rid of those they see as beneath them. Izuku continued that line of thought by saying that a lot of spirals had apparently been frozen to keep their own numbers high. At seeing the uphill battle the two had against their ancient enemy, Ida and Achiko were quick to say they would stand with them. This made the two smile a bit as they were pulling up to a large domed building. Right as they were moving in, Asahi's bad feeling was getting worse. When they arrived, they were met by the space-themed rescue hero 13. Aizawa slipped up to the space-suited heroine to ask where All Might was. I don't know the details, but he's apparently busy with an actually troubling case. He's been missing for about an hour. This worries Aizawa and Vlad, but they know they can't project their worries to their students. Vlad then coughs before saying, well, unfortunately our fourth instructor is running a little late, but they should be along any time. For now, I'll turn the floor over to 13. The black hole hero nods before explaining how quirks had changed the world they all lived in. And how each of them must take care not to abuse the powers some of them have been born with. Our three seekers here as well as many heroes have seen what come from people abusing their powers. They should be the ones you look to for understanding restraint. Aoyama though raises his hand and asks, if that is true, then where does the turning myself and Miss Ashido to stone? 13 coughs as she doesn't know how to explain it. Aizawa though does. Miss Shield was giving a good example of the plus ultra mentality needed in some of these situations. She knew she couldn't hold back and was willing to put it all out to defeat you. Each of you should do the same, Aizawa says with his usual deadpan expression. Vlad chimes in to say that villains wouldn't care that they are just kids or students. They will come at you with everything they have. So you have to be willing to put out your best to beat them. With that 13 then explained that the domed place they were all in had a variety of biomes for training and practice. You'll be practicing how to rescue people in each of these scenarios. Now then let's begin. With that, 13 led the teens to the top of the stairs as they looked out over the scenarios. But then a misty black vortex opened up in the center plaza of the complex. What came pouring out were a variety of thugs with terrifying quirks. Including a large black-skinned creature with a beak, and a strange young man with hands all over his body. But the ones that made the seekers worry were the ones behind them. Stepping beside the large monster was the same silent soldier leader that had appeared the day before. And along with him were a variety of spirals who look ready for a fight. Before someone can ask if the training had started, Izuku tells Aizawa and the other teachers, we've got BLD spirals. And a lot of them. Asahi then pulls out some mini binoculars to hand to the two teachers. He then points out the silver masked people and it makes both of the heroes' hair stand on end. They really are like a cult. It's no wonder these guys make you nervous, Aizawa says before instructing 13 to evacuate the students. Asahi and Izuku though step forward to back up their teachers. You'll need us down there. If the spirals get too close, they could try to take over your minds. We can't let that happen, Izuku says before pulling out a few amulets. He then summons his freelancer, Icarus, Ronin, Caliban and Raijin. Asahi does the same with his Azura, Barrage, Freelancer, Soulwing and Ignatius. I had a feeling something could happen, so I called a friend earlier. Given what happened when I checked my phone, we've been cut off from the outside. So, he should be on his way. We just need to buy time. Vlad and Aizawa looked between each other before Vlad says, only one of you should come with us. Maybe just send your titans down. The two seekers look to each other before they nod. Izuku steps back but not before summoning a hoplite. Asahi and Melissa also summon hoplites and Izuku instructs his titans to help fight the incoming horde of villains. With that done, the teachers, Asahi and a small army of titans rush down the stairs toward the villains. Most of the villains are confused by the strange creatures as well as the team running alongside the heroes. A few of the emitters try to use their quirks, but Aizawa has already put his goggles on and cancels out their quirks. Vlad then uses the BLD in his suit to restrain a few of them before knocking more of them out. When the mutant types try to attack the teachers, Asahi aims a ray pulse and other blast spells at them to knock a few of them away. When three are about to rush Aizawa from behind, Asahi nimble fires close to his teacher, before using a hyperstride enhanced set of kicks to send the villains flying. I thought that spell was just for increased movement. Aizawa asks after tossing villains he caught in his capture cloth around. Asahi stands before unleashing his favorite spell Touch Ram and says, that's just the usual application. If you can get creative enough, any spell is combat capable. Rear view. When Asahi says this, he sees the battle going on behind him and can fire a few more blasts at the villains that are struggling with the titans. But things started to take a turn when a few of the BLD spirals got involved. Some of them had already sent out harlequins and marauders, while firing off null curses and rushing in with cut race. Dayu Foundation Lapdog. One shouted at Asahi, who just flipped over the spiral, and sent him skyward with a dragon fist. And when another tried to sneak up on him, he fired a quick kindle strike behind his back into the stomach of his attacker. The teacher also fought some of the spirals and had mixed success. Aizawa was quick to notice a few of them didn't seem to work well with each other and took advantage of that and the recklessness of the villains. Vlad King though kept running into the problem that the spirals were faster than he anticipated. And kept using a hit and run strategy. So, he instead focused on the villains. While this is happening though, 13 is trying to evac the students. But then Black Wisp villain appears in front of the exit. Greetings students of UA. Do not worry. You are not the primary target of our attack this day. Most of us are just here to kill All Might. Though our allies wish to use you. So I can't let you leave. As the wispy villain is finishing his explanation, Todoroki, Aoyama, Pony and Rin fired their quirks to attack the villain. But said villain just uses his portal body to redirect their attacks. Now I think it is time to scatter all of you, the villain says before expanding his body around the area. The mist then envelopes most of the two classes and half of them get scattered to the various rescue zones. Izuku, Yui, Ibara and Manga get dropped in the conflagration zone. With Izuku catching Yui and slowing her fall with feather drop. Manga uses his quirk to blow away some of the fire and allow for Ibara to land without setting herself on fire. She also catches the speech bubble-headed young man. Well, that was crazy. Any idea what we do next? Yui said as Izuku set her down from the bridal carry. Manga though is freaking out and asks, how the hell are you so calm? Villains are attacking, and we just got dropped into a literal inferno. And that is the first thing you can say. Ibara though smacks him with her hand before saying, I would prefer it if you didn't speak so vulgarly. And she has a point. We need to know what to do now. Sadly, I won't be of much help. Upon the flames building up again, one of Ibara's vines starts on fire. Izuku quickly puts it out with an auger frost. He then tells her to hold still and he casts chill skin on the girl. That should keep you from getting burned or set on fire. We need to move. I don't know how long it will take for the backup Asahi arranged to get here. But we need to move on the assumption it will be later rather than sooner. Izuku then says they need to take out the surrounding villains. What are you talking about? None of our quirks are useful in this situation. Manga shouts. But Izuku just tells him he is wrong. Depending on what you say, you can make different things happen, right? And Kodai can make tricky traps with her quirk. If we play this right, we could funnel the villains to a place I can take them out, Izuku says while pulling his gloves on tighter. Yui and Ibara nod and look to Izuku for suggestions. Manga then throws his hands up in exasperation before saying he was in too. Izuku then sets forth his ideas, and Ibara then offers to go with him. I'm guessing you cannot summon any more of those titans, correct? Then you'll need backup in case there are more than you can handle, the holy girl says with a look that tells Izuku she won't be taking no for an answer. All around the USJ, the first-year students are getting a real taste of what it means to be a hero. And how they handle this emergency will define what kind of heroes they are. Across town though, a holotome is closed. Guess something did happen. But I'll need a friend to get the job done. And I saw him pass by a little while ago. We don't see who is speaking, but they look out the window and the view of All Might fighting a massive pair of quirked monsters can be seen. With a smile that is barely seen in the reflection, the person says, "Time to get to work." In the conflagration zone, Izuku and Ibara were waiting in an alley for the villains. Suddenly, they heard a group of them shouting. Calling out, "Hold it right there, girly," or some noting that Yui was attractive and wanting to, disgusting. I normally take no pleasure in the idea of harming others. But I think I and God would make an exception for these animals. Ibara said with an angry look on her face. While Izuku wasn't quite that aggressive, he did agree. And they got their chance as Yui came by their alley. She then quickly used her quirk to increase the size of a barrel in her pouch. And then hid inside of it. While the villains were looking around, Manga used his own quirk to seal off the alley. While the villains were questioning what happened, the two eyes sprung into action. Ibara looped her vines around a few villains and slammed them into the ground and walls to knock them out. Izuku meanwhile nimble fired close to two before bolt flare and touch ramming them into unconsciousness. When one tried to take him from behind, Izuku leapt above the woman with hyperstride. And then kicked her so hard in the face she was unrecognizable. He then took a page from his former idol and used his strongest dragon fists and the speed of nimble fire to knock out at least 5 more villains. Before any of the villains could stand, Izuku used stop glue and auger frost to hold the villains in place. Glad that worked. You can come out now, Kodai. We got him. Manga said, letting up the words he used to seal the alley. Yui popped out of the barrel and looked around at the damage her classmates had done. While still having a blank look, the girl said, "Wow. You two knocked them around no problem. I'm betting they didn't plan for all of this. My guess, they were just planning to overwhelm with numbers alone. Ibara aside, most of us wouldn't be held back by the flames here. Heck, you showed you could negate the flames, Fukudashi-kun," Izuku said while cupping his chin in contemplation. Yui thinks for a second before asking, "You think they just sent us to random zones? Not betting on who would be sent to those places and if they could counter the quirks there?" Izuku nods before noting that they may not have bet on both classes being at the USJ either. But before any of them can contemplate more, Manga gets blasted in the side and sent spiraling. Well now. It seems the beasts have gathered up a few new tools for us. At least they had some use. The one saying this was a Commander BLD Spiral, with a sycophant behind him. Before he can try to use Warp Mind, the enhanced Simple Mind, to let them control people, Izuku pops out and blasts the commander with a ray pulse. Before he can be struck by the sycophant though, Yui and Ibara jump in to aid him. With some success. Yui first tries to stop the creature by changing the size of the debris. But this works against the teens for the most part. Okay. Bad idea. Those types of titans can rip apart jets and solid metal structures. Busting concrete is easy for them. Then what if we stop his momentum? Yui, Izuku, and Ibra each say in succession. Ibra first uses her vines to try and create barriers to stop the sycophante's attacks. But this is a diversion. As she had been sneaking a few more vines around to trap the titan's arms. While this is happening, Izuku had engaged the Commander Spiral and 4 other BLD Spiral grunts and their titans. While he didn't have a lot of strength to summon left, Izuku mustered up enough power to summon one he wasn't sure would be useful. Fire Kappa. Izuku called out as the turtle-like Yama Titan was summoned to the field. It used its shell and the fire on its head and around it to defeat a few of the other titans. With Ibra trying to hold a few of the harlequins and marauders. While Yui and Manga attempted to fight the spirals with the quirks and fists. It was a bit of a struggle, but the teens eventually defeated the spirals in their zone. I could barely do anything against those titans. Ibra said while nursing a bit of a headache from all the regrowing of her vines. Manga though was a bit disheartened at his and Yui's attempts against the spiral grunts. Our quirks could barely phase those guys. And fighting them hand to hand wasn't easy either. Most of that is because we don't fight hand to hand. We're so reliant on our quirks that we can't think around them. Yui said with a monotone voice. But the look on her face showed her disappointment. Izuku sighed before trying to bring up the other spirits. And refocus them on the task at hand. Don't worry about that right now. Ibara-san, hold still. Chill skin. We need to get out of here and find the others. They might be in as much danger as we are. There's only 3 seekers here. So the rest of our class might be in danger of being brainwashed. The eyes of his teammates grew wide as they realized his point. With that they went to help the others in the different zones. In the shipwreck zone, Reiko was trapped on the ship with Mineta, Tsuyu, and Pony. As much as I'd like to enjoy the idea that I'm on a boat with 3 hotties, I'm more terrified of what is circling us. Mineta said as they watched all of the aquatic villains circling the boat. What do we do now? Pony asked while looking over their situation. Tsuyu was one for waiting and hoping the teachers and heroes would get them out. Mineta agrees, but Reiko is of a different mind. If we just wait, then these villains will get impatient and attack us instead. And I'd prefer not facing them in their element. And what would you suggest? It's not like we can pull the plug on this pool. Mineta says with a panicked look. Reiko is about to retort when she thinks about what he had said. She then smiles behind her mask before saying, who says we can't? While the 1A pair are looking at her like she's crazy, Reiko turns to Pony and asks how fast she can fire her horns. Pony isn't sure but she assumed it was enough to break concrete or crack metal. Then that is what we need. And I'll help them along. Azui-san, did you see anything like a drain or similar at the center of the pool? Yeah. It had a metal plate on top of it. But I guess you two could break it. Tsuyu says with a skeptical look. While Mineta just thinks they are crazy and wondering why they are doing this. With their plan set, Pony fires 2 horns and directs them down toward the water. With Reiko pushing them as far and as hard as she could within her range limit. The first pair hits the drain, making a light shake in the water. This doesn't bother most of the villains, but a few of the experienced ones start to put together what the teens were doing. After 2 more rounds, Pony and Reiko break through the drain. And the shipwreck zone starts to empty, pulling the villains. Pony then uses her horns again to levitate herself and Reiko, while Tsuyu grabs Mineta. But they are all about to be set upon by the experienced villains who figured out their plan. You won't get away. One shark-like villain says while widening his mouth. But then his mouth is filled with the orbs that Mineta generates. You're not getting us that easy. The scared purple teen shouts as he throws more and more of his ball at the villains. Even tossing a few into the draining water. Once all of the water has been drained, many of the villains are trapped in the clusters of orbs Mineta had thrown out. While the boy's head was bleeding, he was happy that he managed to do something cool and heroic. Good job, Mineta-kun. You managed to trap most of those villains. I was lucky you and Tsunatori. Right? You two made it easy to pull off. I just panicked and realized I had to try something. I'm trying to be a hero, right? Mineta said while wincing at the pain on his head. Reiko smiled before noting they needed to climb up to the rim of the pool. While they are doing that, Melissa and the others still up at the top are face to face with Kurogyri. Everyone get back. I'll handle this. 13 says with a hidden but determined look. Melissa stops the hero though. You're going to use your quirk, right? Don't. He can easily turn your power against you. You try to SCK him in, he'll turn that force around and make it SCK you up instead. This makes the space-themed hero stop for a moment before asking if Melissa had a different idea. The girl nods before first firing a bolt flare to try and blind Kurogyri. But the villain simply opens his gate to counter this. Though he also underestimates what the spell can do. As right as it was going through the gate, Melissa gestured, and the spell flew through the gate again and then up to Kurogyri's face. As the villain is wincing and recoiling, 13 starts to SCK in the distracted villain. While Melissa shouts for Ida to run. While the class rep of 1A doesn't wish to abandon his classmates, he respects his teacher and the elder student of the group. And sprints off to alert the other teachers of UA. Right as he gets past, Kurogyri recovers enough to open a gate behind 13. But Melissa was counting on some of this and summons Janice EA the gatekeeper. Janice EA. Use your orbs to redirect his gate. Melissa calls out. The Titan does just that, and the redirected attack of Kurogyri's is redirected at him. So he relents and warps back from the group as best he can. While 13 is ready to get close and try to SCK the monster into her black hole again, Melissa stops her. He wouldn't have backed up if he wasn't planning something else. Right as she says this, a null curse and a few Rapulse blast fire at them. 13 tries to SCK up the spells, but her quirk only works on the null curse. And she is blasted by 2 Rapulses to the chest. 6 BLD spirals come from Kurogyri as he tells the group he is warning the leader Tamura. Not a bad idea. We'll handle this group. And maybe gain some new weapons for us and for you villains. The lead spiral with a BLD red robe says while directing the others to summon their titans. While most summon harlequins and meruators, the lead spiral has something different. First summoning a dark pharaoh and Nilurker, but then her apparent favorite. Devour them. Aratet. A large snake titan appears, similar in size to the Slitherfang that was part of the attack a few days ago. But this one appears to have armor as well, wings on its back. Glad I didn't summon too many titans earlier. Blast through. Mason. Fight for your lady. Kill Thane. Bologna. Find the way. Silver Hunter. And with that all of Melissa's titans come forward to aid her in the battle. With a few of the students that were left being intimidated or impressed by some of the creatures they saw. But Melissa herself couldn't aid the rest right away. I'm still not used to all of this power. Need a moment to recharge. Then we'll keep you covered until you are ready. Rin says while growing a new layer of scales to his arms. A few of the others left power up or get ready to fight as well. While Melissa quietly uses head cage on a few of the students she sees a weaker minded compared to the rest. In the center though, the hero teachers and Asahi have burst through and gotten close to the leader and the strongest BLD spirals. Think you've got strong enough summons to fight this kid and the other creatures? Not a problem. I've been saving a few just in case. The green-haired ally to the League of Villains say. The man in this case is a thinner build, but still has apparent muscle. Especially compared to the leader of the League. He then pulls out 2 titans to battle the enemy before him. Corrupt everything. Jericho. Devour, Terrapede. The first summoned titan is a massive beast, skeletal in appearance and impressive abilities. Shown when Asahi fires a ray pulse at Tamura, and the creature just absorbs the shot like it was nothing. The second beast is a terrifying insect beast, which not only shows its physical power by taking out all 3 hoplites before they can strike, but the beams it fires defeats the weakened freelancer of Asahi's. Okay, this is bad, Asahi says with a gulp. The teachers agree. But before they can strategize, Tamura orders his own creature to attack. The black beast called Nomu rushes forward and knocks Vlad King away like he's nothing. Right as the Nomu is about to attack Aizawa, Asahi's Azura steps in to battle the beast. Lambert. We should let the titans handle the strongest monsters. You and I will face the villains, Aizawa says to the young seeker, who nods while staring down the lead spiral and the minions he has around him. Talk tough all you want, Eraserhead. But you won't be able to erase our powers, the spiral says with a smirk to the hero. Aizawa agrees before noting that it was a good thing he wasn't alone. He then rushes toward Tamura to keep the villain and the few others around him occupied, while Asahi faces off with the other BLD spirals gathered. While both are thinking, I hope backup gets here soon. In an abandoned part of the city, All Might was fighting a group of strange monsters that were attacking the area. There were 5 of them and they each had 3 eyes. It's almost like those titan things. The strength is troublesome enough, but they always seem to know where I'm coming from. That's because they are titans and they do know where you are coming from, might. It's part of their powers. A new voice calls out as a black fog drifts over the area. Bristlebind. Shatterknuckle. Ripple Burst. Kindle Strike. All Might hears as a myriad of new effects seem to be happening all around him. And he can hear a few more attacks and spells likely being called out while the fog is still covering the area. When it clears, the 3 creatures are disappearing. But there is one still standing, so All Might takes his chance. Detroit Smash, he shouts as he gets a clean powerful hit to the face of the last disoriented creature. And it vanishes. I'd normally make a joke about you taking too long, but it's not the time. All Might looked over and saw the person who aided him in killing and ending the threat of All for One a few years ago. Zaid Vale. He identifies as a man, but right now he is still physically a woman. With his hair a purple tint and pulled back into a ponytail. And his sharp black eyes looking over his old ally. All Might is still smiling and then says, "It's good to see you again, Zaid. Never got around to Dash, let's not jump to that old man. Right now we have a bigger issue. We need to get to UA. Or that USJ place. I think the kids are in trouble." At hearing this, All Might's eyes widen, before narrowing in slight ferocity. He tells Zaid to grab onto his back so they can reach the dome quickly. Zaid does just that and All Might leaps off to save his students. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 3. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author HanBaron on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.